property. So even though it maintains a slightly greater than a 1-foot setback from the fence wall, it is actually fully on the neighbor's property to the south. So visually it appears to be set back a little bit further from the property line than it actually is. This is a practical difficulty variance. There are 4 criteria. Staff is requesting applicant testimony as to how this occurred, if the additional foot of encroachment was required to either meet the Florida Building Code or some other site constraint, or if it was simply a mistake during construction of the patio. So staff finds that if the applicant adequately justifies criteria 3, which is where that question shared in the prior slide originated from, by providing a basis for why the additional foot encroachment is necessary, staff finds that the applicant has adequately supported their case. They have engineered this deck patio to allow percolation into it from stormwater due to the presence of a solid wall in the southern side yard that mitigates deflection from swale runoff toward the neighboring property. So stormwater, unlike a typical pool patio, especially a concrete patio, actually falls within the deck, and it's driven out from there. So we don't expect this additional 1 foot of encroachment to have any significant impact from a stormwater perspective on the neighbor's property. We do request 3 conditions be included in this approval should it be granted. The first is that the conditions of the authorized variance from early 2024 remain in effect. These largely pertain to an elevated deck and walkout that was provided at the rear of the structure, but those would remain in effect as this is an amendment to that variance. New conditions: any portion of the patio within the required 5-foot southern side yard setback shall remain as open wood decking or another permeable system that directs all runoff away from the neighboring property. These variances do run with the land, so if this were to be reconstructed, we would want to make sure that it remains a permeable system as it has been developed today. And should the subject property or deck redevelop subsequent to the southern wall's removal, there is a fence wall on the southern side. The owner should grade or use other mechanisms such as retaining walls to ensure that swaled stormwater is not deflected to the neighbor's property. Again, just working with the existing conditions to ensure that in the future there is not any adverse effect to the neighbor's property from this encroachment. We have received a letter of support from the affected neighbor to the south. They have supported this request, and based on that, should the board move to approve this case, we ask that you do so with the 3 recommended staff conditions. You can also deny the case if you find that the applicant has not provided competent and substantial evidence to support their case, specifically criteria 3, which was addressed by staff, or you can motion to continue this case to a future date pending submittal of additional information if the board finds that necessary to take action. We do have the agent for the case present. I believe they have a presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions if you have any for me at this time.
Just one quick one, Brandon. Out of curiosity, do you know, so I understand that southern fence is actually past the property line. Do you know roughly what the dimensions are if that were the setback? Like, does that get them closer to the 2 feet?
It's shown in the survey. I believe it's still a slight encroachment, but it's about 1.25 to 1.5 feet from the outside edge of the fence based on what's shown.
Thank you. Any other questions for Brandon? If the applicant or the applicant's agent would like to please share your case.
Madam Chair, is it possible to go ahead and get any ex parte communications on the record, and also if there's any conflict of interest, that way the applicant can address it?
Absolutely. Member Small?
None.
None.
Site visit is all.
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian Ungs, 625 Court Street, here on behalf of the applicant, the property owners Gar and Elise Lippincott, 2909 Sunset Way. Mr. Lippincott is here, as well as our general contractor, Carmine Peachy, who can answer any technical questions you might have. I actually have a picture from this morning that I think might very clearly demonstrate the reason that this extra foot was necessitated on a very small portion of this deck, and it was to accommodate an existing stairwell and planter system. So I don't know if I can show this on the overhead, this image, if that will come up.
Yep.
Okay, let me scoot it that way and then zoom in a little bit. So you'll see here, this is the fence that is on the Hellers, Dr. Bridget and Dr. Elliot Heller's property line, and it is 18 inches from that stairwell. That stairwell was existing in terms of the footprint. It's a new stairwell, but we built it in the exact footprint of a previous stairwell. And so that encroachment has always been there in terms of the width at that portion of the setback. So this does not run the entire portion of the deck. It only runs for the stairwell. And of course, my phone just messed up. Let me pull that back up real quick. You'll also see that, as staff noted, these lots were platted back in the 1920s as very, very narrow lots. Their width is narrow and their depth is long. And the Hellers have that same exact layout. And you can see the Hellers have a completely impervious elevated deck that goes right up to the property line. So there's a 0 setback. The Hellers were also approved, and I represented them for a variance a few years ago for a trellis that is between 1.8 1 foot 8 inches setback from the Lippincotts fence, which runs a longer width. So this is typical of the development pattern out there, but the practical difficulty is that when we were excavating this area for the steps, we realized that there's a planter on both sides. There's a planter on the right side, you can see, and then there's a planter system that runs down the left side of the deck. And there's more pictures in here in the PowerPoint that I can show that will better demonstrate that. We can flip to the PowerPoint now if that's all right. And one of the conditions for this approval was that the entire deck be permeable so that everything percolates, and we didn't want to damage the existing planters and irrigation system. And that we felt like that was more important than maintaining strictly that 2-foot setback. So you'll see here again, this is the aerial, Heller's house, Dr. Bridget and Dr. Elliott Heller to the south, Mr. and Mrs. Lippincott there in the red. Very similar development pattern, very close setbacks, particularly in the rear of the properties where you're looking at the pools for those 3 lots. This is a less good image of what I just showed you, which is why we tried to get a better image to show the planter on the left-hand side as well as the planter on the right-hand side, and the fact that this is for an existing stairwell. And you can see what we're looking at is the very bottom of the screen. If you look at the red hatch, you'll see that the majority of that red hatched area running east to west or left to right is 2-foot setback. The only portion that's not is that portion for the stairwell. Again, this is showing that portion, the only portion that's encroaching into the previously approved 2-foot setback, and that is about less than 10 feet. It is 18 inches from the fence, so it's about 1.5 feet from the fence. And this is another image showing the closeness and the elevated deck that is on the adjacent property. So we felt like, in keeping with the spirit of the approval, which was to protect the permeability, percolation, and the irrigation and the existing planter system, that it was best not to disturb those and to keep the existing encroachment for the stairwell where it was, where we had intended to move it back. And so it's really not creating any kind of new encroachment that didn't previously exist, and is protecting the permeability and the stormwater retention and all of the things that the staff is concerned about is actually being better served by this proposal than by the last proposal. We're happy to answer any questions you have, and again, Mr. Peachy's here to answer those questions, as is Mr. Lippincott.
Well, am I correct that they got a variance in 2024?
Yes, sir.
And that was 2 years ago?
Yes, sir.
So it's just, was that before the hurricanes, or?
That was before the hurricanes, right? Yeah, that was before the hurricanes.
Does the hurricanes have anything to do with this at all?
I don't think so. Yeah, no, it's not. It wasn't caused by the hurricanes. It really was once Mr. Peachy got out and started constructing and excavating that area, he realized that if he moved that stairwell footer over another foot, it would destroy the planter on the left-hand side, which would impact the entire planting system that runs down that portion of the property. And again, he can explain that in more detail if you'd like him to. But it was an
The only thing
existing.
that concerns me is you're asking for a variance from a variance.
Right, we're just, basically, it's as built, as constructed. It was slightly more encroaching than the approval, and that is correct, but that was done because we're keeping that existing stairwell feature. So it's not encroaching any further than the prior stairwell, if that helps. It's not asking for any additional encroachment than what had historically been there.
I think just to clarify his point, it's always better when we don't have an after-the-fact situation, right? Like I was here for the prior variance. I understand the situation. I really respect the fact that you have your neighbor's support, and that makes our job a lot easier when the person this is impacting is supportive of the construction project. But I would just ask in the future, if you can, do other construction projects on the beach, if you recognize that this is going to be an issue before proceeding with the construction, please come and talk to us first, because that makes our job a lot easier than to be putting out a signal that we're going to be giving forgiveness for something that's already done that wasn't approved in the first place.
Yes, Madam Chair. Permission is always better than forgiveness. Understand that.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No, I think that was covered.
No? Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
At this time, if there's anybody else here that would like to speak on behalf or in opposition of this case, we'd love to hear your comments. Hearing none, we'll close public comment and open for board discussion. I've kind of stated my thoughts, but open to everybody else's.
Yeah, I agree. I can see why with the previous stairwell, why it was done. I share the same concerns that you did, as far as a variance and a variance, but it makes sense. I think he's satisfied, as far as I'm concerned. He's demonstrated what the staff's requiring, so, you know, I don't have any other questions. I think it's pretty-
No, I was agreeing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that helps as well. Yeah.
I think we should be notified, though. I agree with you 100%, because that was my biggest issue was.
Sure to speak into the
I was sitting here on that case, so we gave them a variance, and then they didn't adhere to it, it seemed like. But for, 1 foot 8 inches of area, I think we're okay.
I think the conditions suggested by staff are incredibly important as to ensure that the variance that was previously provided.
Should we
stay.
consider that if we grant these variances, it's for this owner, and I understand that the next owner of the house will understand that that's the situation, but do we have?
It goes with the land, so there's not, the variance stays with the land as opposed to an individual property owner.
Okay.
Are we in a position to ascertain a motion?
Yeah, I'll get my feet wet. I move to approve case number 26059 with the conditions that the staff has set forth, the 3 conditions.
I second that.
So the staff has a draft order in your packet, and based on their testimony and the documents that you have in your record, it appears that that there was satisfactory evidence for 3 of the 4 criteria. The last criteria, staff recommended that you hear the testimony of the applicant, and that criteria is whether the difficulty can be obviated by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than a variance. And it sounds like, based on your conversation, your discussion, that that criteria would be satisfied.
That's correct.
Agree.
Agreed.
Roll call, please.
Member Small,
Yes.
Member Schmidt,
Yes.
Vice Chair Core,
Yes.
Member Kunzer,
Yes.
Chair Chase.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our second case for this afternoon, case number 26071.
Okay, this is also a practical difficulty variance request for a deck. This is case number 26071, property address of 2702 Paso Grill Way. Sheridan Gerard Iacangelo requests to reconstruct an existing wood deck of approximately 16 by 22 feet that encroaches to the southern side property line where a setback of 5 feet is required. This is made pursuant to Land Development Code Section 6.13 C2C. The C, as opposed to the B under the prior case, is because this deck is not elevated more than 2 feet. You can see here an aerial of the property. It's located between 27th and 28th Avenues along Paso Grill Way on the western side. Property has a zoning of RU2 residential district. It's also within the Paso Grill overlay district. So the applicant is requesting a variance from the 10% of the lot width side yard setback standard for a deck. That is 5 feet for this property, a property width of 50 feet. That is required for open decks located within the side yard of a residential property pursuant to Section 6.13 C2C. The applicant's requesting to reconstruct an existing deck, which they stated has been in place since at least the 1980s in its same footprint. So you can see the district has a requirement of a 5-foot side yard setback. The existing deck has a setback of approximately half a foot. This originally came in as a request for a lot line setback, so a 0-foot setback. However, we have spoken with the applicant based on the measurement estimated by staff for a footprint replacement. They are looking at a side setback of 0.5 feet, so a slightly greater offset from the property line than what had been made under the original application. So it would be a footprint replacement at about a half-foot setback from the southern side property line. You can see that here, the deck proposed for replacement. There is a wood fence that straddles the property line. It should be a little bit more evident on the staff photos that there is a slight setback, and it's a little bit difficult to make out on the slide here, but the side of the deck is set back approximately 0.6 feet on the western side from that property line. There is a measurement shown by the surveyor for that setback. Here's some photographs of the site showing the sign posting from Pasquarel Way, the front of the home. This is a locally designated historic residence. It is also considered a contributing structure under the Pasquarel Pasquarel Historic District. Because this deck is an accessory feature, it does not affect the historic status of the home. You can see here, looking toward the south, the neighbor's property, the existing deck. It was noted by staff to be in fairly dilapidated condition. There were depressed areas of the deck. It was clearly in need of replacement. In speaking with the homeowner, the deck was eventually going to be in need of replacement. However, the 2024 storms did accelerate the damage to the deck, which you can see here up against the fence line, as well as the slight half-foot offset from the existing wood fence that straddles the property lines. There are 4 standards associated with a practical difficulty variance. Staff finds that the applicant has reasonably supported all 4 criteria. This is a footprint replacement that was accelerated by a storm outside of the applicant's control. The request that they are making and the layout and request that they are making is reasonable. The only testimony that we asked for from the applicant is their chosen material for the deck. We understand that they're going to be using a composite material. Typically, that is not susceptible to humidity expansion like wood is, but we want to make sure that the deck layout is going to be accounting for any kind of thermal expansion. We want to make sure that water can continue to percolate through the deck instead of run off to the neighbor's property with this replacement. So with that, we do find that the request is reasonable. It meets the criteria for issuance of a practical difficulty variance. We're not asking for any additional support for any of the 4 criteria. They are seeking to remediate a hardship caused in part by storm damage and replace an existing deck in its same footprint. The scale of the deck is modest. We do feel that requiring the deck to meet the 5-foot side yard setback would be excessive. It would significantly affect the usability of the deck, and that it's reasonable given the additional cost and potential for failure of the wood deck and the risks associated with doing so in simply restoring the deck in its existing footprint with the wood material. Should this request be approved, staff recommends the following conditions. The first is that deck boards shall be spaced to maintain at least an 1/8 inch gap when accounting for thermal expansion. As I mentioned, we don't expect there to be any kind of thermal expansion from the composite material that they're using to reconstruct this deck. Any outer trim boards used shall be oriented to direct rainwater inward to the deck or away from neighboring property. Surface below the deck shall be permeable, or if not, it shall be graded to allow water to percolate into the subject property instead of running off to the neighbor's property. We don't expect any kind of challenge or issue with that. We just want to make sure that, again, with this variance running with the land, this is something that will be maintained into the future. And then for any new construction, we ask that the applicant submit a final as-built survey demonstrating that the deck will be replaced in its same footprint. It maintains that half-foot offset from the property line on the south side. We did receive 1 letter of support for this request. It was not made by the immediately abutting neighbor, but we did not receive any correspondence from the neighbor to the direct south. So with that, your action options are on the screen. We do have the property owners present, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brandon. Any questions?
Can you go back and show the picture of the house with the yellow sign out in front again? I'm trying to get there. Can you point to where we're talking about here?
It's on the left side. You can see the wood fence there on the very far left.
Wood fence, I don't see any deck at all.
So the deck is set in the backyard. It's not visible from this photo. Let me see here. Let me get a better photo. This is looking toward the south from probably the back third of the residence.
So if I'm looking at that right now, which way is Pasquarel Way?
To the left. So beyond the deck, if you follow the fence line out to the left, that would be the fence that you can see in this photo on the left-hand side.
Now I see. I've driven by that several times trying to see where it was, and couldn't see it.
It's a low deck, it's hard to see unless you're standing right at the sidewalk.
That further emphasizes the, it's not having a huge visual impact.
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah,
on-
no, I
can't
know.
even
That's,
see
but I was just curious because I
Yeah.
kept going back, where is it?
it. Any other questions for Brandon?
Yeah, Brandon, real quick, I just want to be clear, and I apologize. Are you concerned about them using composite? Is that what you were saying?
So they are using composite, and the owners are present and can speak to this, but as this runs with the land, if they were to replace in the future, we want to make sure that it's an open slatted surface so that water can percolate through.
But you don't have any concerns with composite?
No, not at all.
I didn't think so.
Anything else for Brandon? No. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
If the applicant would please come forward and share your case with us.
Madam Chair, any ex parte or conflicts?
Hi, this is Sharon Icangelo.
One moment,
We have
please.
to-
Sorry.
Member Small?
I know.
None? Nope.
Just a drive-by.
Site visit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, just
Sharon
your-
Icangelo,
Oh, pull your mic down a little
2702
bit.
Paso Grill Way.
Perfect.
Don't tip it over, just pull it down.
We're just trying to get the deck replaced as is. I mean, as Brandon said, it was in need of repair before the hurricanes. The hurricanes just took the rest of it.
Yeah.
And no, you cannot see it from the street, which is, yeah. And it's been there since the early 80s. The house itself has been there in my family since almost 100 years. So it's all we're asking. We're not asking for any more, but taking the 5 feet away definitely would impact the size and functionality of the deck. It's not that big to begin with. So you take it away, and then it's like, what's the point? I'm welcome, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I don't know exactly what you're looking for.
Do you have any concerns with the two conditions shared by staff in terms
The
of?
only concern that I have right now is the fact that you're asking for yet another survey. We just provided one about 2 months ago, and we're not going to be adding anything. We're just replacing as is. So I guess my concern is, why should we go through the expense of yet another survey when we're not changing anything?
Understood. Kristen, are there any other ways to get the dimensions of the final deck that wouldn't cause a financial burden on the homeowners?
Not that I'm aware of. The reason that we do ask for the as-built survey is just to, again, clarify that what was approved was what was constructed.
Yep.
Being that they have the base layer, if it's a recent survey, they could probably just come out and just reconfirm that setback. It wouldn't be a whole another expense.
Okay, would a notice from the deck builder suffice, as that we did build this to what the specifications were?
The survey is a licensed surveyor that's attesting to that setback. So that is a formal, you know.
All right, I don't have an answer from the surveyor. I reached out to find out exactly what the financial impact is to redo it. I guess I misunderstood in my correspondence with Brandon about having a new survey, so I thought having it done prior to submitting the package was the appropriate thing to do. I didn't realize that I could have relied on my previous survey and then incurred the expense of a new boundary survey afterwards. And that's why Sharon was kind of pushing back gently as to whether there was another way to verify that. But I've reached out to the surveyor, and I haven't heard back as to, what it involved to do to verify that. And then, in addition to that, we're looking at replacing the fence, and talking to fence builders, they recommended that the deck needed to be done first. So I would want to understand, I believe we have a period of time to have the survey resubmitted of some form. Whether we're allowed to do that with the deck replacement, because I don't want to go a third time to find out now you've done the fence, and I didn't realize till Brandon pointed it out, the fence was actually set back from the property line. So I'd actually asked for more setback relief than was necessary. So I think that's what I wanted to clarify on that subject beyond what Sharon had mentioned. And then for condition 2, the deck builder that looks like we're probably going to select to do the work, I reached out to their company, and they said regarding the 1/8 inch gap on the boards, He says that they adhere to the standard in the industry, which is 3/16, which is a 1/16 of an inch greater than 1/8 of an inch. So we should meet the gap requirement based on just their standard construction, building.
Thank you, and I hear your concerns financially. We're not looking to put any additional financial burden on you or your family. We do need to make sure that legally we have the documentation that what has been approved has been done. And I trust that staff will work with you to make sure that's done in the most, conservative way possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just didn't want
I
to.
have a question on that.
Yeah.
That, in regards to that, is it not possible to, take this current survey and they're going to have to mark it anyway and stake it out? And can't you leave those markers in place to demonstrate that the as-built does meet that requirement? Because it does seem kind of redundant to have to do a second survey.
I'm not sure if I follow. If the survey's already been completed, there's probably no markers, and usually they're at the boundary corners. I'm not sure if staff is as savvy as we
Or
are.
the deck builder has to go by that survey. He has to put some sort of markers or indication, of exact geometry of what he's building. And if that's tied to the survey, I wouldn't expect you to have to do a second survey to prove that. You already have the initial survey.
The reason for the as-built survey is just to attest to the fact that, like we had in our previous case,
Right.
we caught it on the as-built survey. That is where we caught that the construction was not completed as what was approved. And that is the reason staff does request that, is just to assure the board that your approval, that's what you're constructing to. I don't know what the financial is. I know that the base has been completed. I know that the applicant is asking for relief for something. So that's just, in better terms, just that verification.
Yep, understood.
Would it make sense to
Like a COO?
continue this case until?
No, I think they want to move forward. I think.
Well, I know they
think-
want to, it's
Yeah.
because of that.
And I think the sentiment based off staff's recommendation and what I'm hearing from the board is, very supportive of what you're looking to do. And in that it's, getting a variance requested. And I think that's probably more important to you, that I get that 5 feet than potentially, a slightly additional expense on the survey. But know that we're hoping that you can work with your surveying company to, get that to be as conservative as possible. Any other questions for the applicant?
No.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here today on behalf or in opposition to this case that would like to share their comments with the board? Hearing none, we'll close public comment, open for board discussion.
I don't see any issues at all, especially on the 1/8 gap, because 3/16, so
Yeah.
it says at least 1/8, so they're
You know,
covered there, so
Just
I think
another
we're
example
good.
of folks continuing to rebuild after the storm and trying to get
Yeah,
their house
that's-
back to the way it was,
Right,
right?
we have so much of that.
Yep. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve case number 26071 with staff conditions.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Member Schmidt,
Yes.
Vice Chair Core,
Yes?
Member Kunzer,
Yes.
Member Small,
Yes.
Chair Chase.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to case number 25147, 3535 Bella Vista Drive.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. Gil Martinez, Senior Planner of Community Development. The case before you today is an unnecessary and undue hardship variance, case number 25147. The applicant, Martha D. Bolton, legal representative for Mark and Lynn Broderick, requests to allow an existing unpermitted roofed accessory structure, approximately 341 square feet in area, to remain and be reconfigured to include an enclosed storage area, an open outdoor living area with bar. The structure is proposed to remain with a rear yard setback of 11 feet where 20 feet is required, and a rear side setback of 3.3 feet or 6.7 is required per LDC Section 8.7B 3 and 4. The subject property and the accessory structure associated with it, it's my understanding, was constructed back in 2023. There was a stop work order placed on it. So there is a code enforcement case that is along with this, which has been a part of your backup. The requests that are before you is they're requiring a side yard setback of 6.7 feet, which is 10% of the lot width, to allow for a 3.3 feet, which provide for a 3.4 encroachment on the rear, on the side yard setback. On the rear setback, which requires 20 feet, they are requesting an 11-foot setback, which would give a 9-foot encroachment for their rear yard setback. Here's an image of their survey. This shows the location of the air variances. To the top of the page, you see the 3.3 feet side yard setback, the proposed 11 feet to the lower left-hand side of the page. This is a proposed floor plan. Photograph of our public hearing sign. The current structure of the principal home, image of the home. This is the structure in question. As you can see, there is currently a wall between those two windows. The applicant is proposing knocking down the middle of that wall and making it a knee wall and an open air storage area. These are some existing interior images. This is the area of the structure where a storage area is proposed. This is currently enclosed, but this would be the outdoor living area. As you can see as it's circled, you know, the existing wall would be replaced with a knee-level wall. And this is a view of the bar area facing the current structure. This is a rendering of what is being proposed. Under undue hardship variance standards, there are 8 criteria that need to be considered by the board. Staff has requested that the applicant prepare some testimony in reference to regarding where the location or reduction of the structure is not feasible. The applicant should provide traditional testimony regarding the original construction, timeline, and permitting history to the board. The applicant should also provide an update regarding the present status of the code enforcement proceedings and any remaining compliance actions. The applicant should provide an idea of the type of materials, equipment intended for storage area. And the applicant should address the removal of plumbing, bathroom fixtures, interior door, and existing wall in the areas planned as outdoor living area as depicted in the floor plans. Should the board approve this application, staff recommends 5 conditions. One is that the enclosed area shall be constructed and maintained as non-habitable storage space and shall not be converted into living area. 2, air conditioning and other permanent climate control systems shall not be installed within the storage area. 3, the proposed wall enclosing the door living area shall be modified to a knee wall consistent with the front elevation as depicted in your staff report, figure 7. Number 4, the applicant shall obtain all required building permits consistent with the approved plans and conditions of approval. And 5, that prior to the issuance of a final inspection of approval, planning and zoning staff shall conduct a site inspection to verify compliance with the approved plans and all conditions of approval. Before you are the options to approve with conditions, motion to deny with or without prejudice, or a motion to continue. The applicant's representatives here as well as the property owners, so if you have any questions from me, I'll be glad to take them. If not, I'll turn it over to the applicant at this point.
questions for staff at this point?
I don't know. Any letters from either of the neighbors? Would that be the question for him or not?
No, we have not received any letters of support or against.
Support.
Any additional questions for staff?
Well, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, so, was this built without a permit? Is that what it
That's
means?
correct. Yes.
That's troubling.
The current structure was built without a permit. They're under, there's a
A
code.
stop work order by code enforcement. There is a code
The
enforcement
applicant
proceedings.
will address the status of that for us.
Okay, well, let's hear from them.
Real quick though, was there, I'm curious, did I read, I apologize, but did I read, are there fines associated with this?
Excuse me?
Are there fines associated with this on a daily basis? Did I read something?
It is currently going through a code enforcement procedures. The
Okay.
fines have not been imposed as of yet, but they may be if this isn't settled.
If I may, I can comment on that. I did speak with the code enforcement officer in charge of the case, and they are recommending that administrative fees be paid at a minimum. There is no daily reoccurring fine, and that is a total of $330.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hear from the applicant at this time.
Absolutely.
And prior to the applicant sharing their case, if we could disclose any ex parte, please?
Just a drive-by for me.
No,
None for me.
No?
Thank you. You could share your name and address for the record?
Good afternoon, Martha Bolton, 4055 Central Avenue. I'm representing the Brodericks, and they are
Could you move
present
the mic
here.
over so we can hear you?
Can you hear me better? The Brodericks are here present, as well as one of the neighbors. I do have 2 neighbor letters, however, they were not sent to Mr. Martinez, but I do have them here today, and one of the neighbors present to testify if needed.
And I'm assuming those letters are in support of,
Yes, they are. No objection to the requested variance. The Brodericks have moved here to Florida from Ohio permanently following Mrs. Broderick's retirement, and the property is now homesteaded. Took place in 2025. This is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home with 1,522 square feet. So it is a smaller home, and storage space is at a premium. The requested variance seeks a side and back variance on setbacks for an accessory structure by the swimming pool in the fenced backyard of the property. During the COVID epidemic, Mr. Broderick undertook the services of an architect who produced a design for the accessory structure, and construction began with the understanding that the architect was handling the permitting of the structure. In fact, the architect did meet with the planning board, or planning office rather, on 2 occasions, and it was Mr. Broderick's understanding up in Ohio that the permitting was underway and it was being handled because that was the representation he got from the architect. Also, prior to construction, Mr. Broderick consulted his 2 next-door neighbors to determine if they had any objection to the construction, and they advised that they did not. Unfortunately, in late 2023, when construction was well underway, Mr. Broderick's next-door neighbor complained and a cease work order was served. Soon after that, the neighbor that had complained did pass away from cancer, and his wife died soon after that, leaving that property vacant, and it remains vacant now. Mr. Broderick, after getting the cease and desist letter, immediately stopped work and began efforts on his own to obtain permitting for the accessory structure. And in December 2023 and January 2024, his architect accompanied him to meetings. The hurricanes in 2024 did cause severe water damage to the Broderick property, and the repairs were made with proper permitting to that property, which is now their homestead. During that period, unfortunately, the Brodericks never got any assistance from FEMA or their homeowner's insurance, and everything was out of pocket. And that became the focus, just getting the house back in shape. At that time, the permitting for the accessory structure was still underway, but delayed due to the hurricane activity and the glut of other structure problems. And payment was made to the city, and meetings were held on the progress of the permitting with code enforcement. At present, as Mr. Martinez advised, code enforcement has been continued pending this meeting. Now it's been nearly 3 years since the cease and desist order was entered. The next door property where the complainant lives remains vacant and has not been remediated following the hurricanes. It's just been standing there exactly like it was when the water came and receded. The other neighboring property on the other side is in the process of being raised up and at present is not occupied. The variance application requests a setback on the side and back of the accessory structure. And I've just pulled from the staff report to see how this turns out. The side setback of 6.7 feet is required. The existing encroachment is 3.3 feet. The variance requested is 3.3 feet. And at the rear, there's a 20-foot requirement, a 9-foot encroachment, and 11 feet variance is requested. The structure is located on a pool deck, and the required pool retaining wall prevents its being relocated. I have a visual showing the requested variance as well as a rendering of what the variance is going to look like with the requested changes. This is something that the homeowner did to show the removal of that center wall that Mr. Martinez was referencing. And what we have is a lanai to the right, and the storage area that exists presently is reduced to incorporate an open air area, with the enclosed area being approximately 81 feet. And it's the intention of the homeowner to store hurricane protection there, including Garrison flood panels, which he has purchased for the doorways. As Mr. Martinez advised, there's been a recent site inspection, and the staff report has been issued setting out recommendations that are agreeable to the Brodericks and will be easily accommodated to resolve the matter. The staff report recommends that the storage area be maintained as non-habitable, which is easy enough. There's no air conditioning in there. There's no plumbing. No air conditioning be installed. There is none. The wall reduced to a knee wall, which I've just shown on the rendering as being the plan, and permits to be obtained, which is what we would do upon approval by the board to finalize the permitting for this proposed structure. And then a site inspection of the completed work prior to issuance of the final inspection approval. The main recommendation, of course, is the removal of the portion of the wall, which you've seen. And as a reminder, this is what it looks like now. So the removal of the wall is that second window area.
Can we see the proposed one again?
Yes. And then, so this is the current, and this is the proposed. Actually looks maybe better. Mr. Broderick has asked his neighbors again if they have any objection in addition to the sign in his yard advising of this meeting, and has obtained 2 letters of support. One is from Chip Wilson, who is present today and available to answer any questions. And I do have copies of the letter that I could provide to the board. He resides, Mr. Wilson, resides at 3511 Bell Vista Drive East. which is somewhat close to the property. And then Michael Bush as well has provided a letter in support. He resides at 3547 Bella Vista Drive East.
Are either of those individuals the property that is affected by the rear setback? Immediately rear setback?
One that's being raised and it's vacant currently.
It's the property, if you're facing the house to the right, is where the deceased neighbors were living, and it's vacant. To the left, if you're facing the front door, is the property that's being raised, and...
No,
That's Michael Bush.
that's Michael Bush.
Behind, right behind me.
Okay. I apologize. I'm trying to remember when I was just there for the site inspection, but you're right.
I gathered.
Okay. So it's vacant now, but the occupant is...
I'm sure he has no problem with it, but he's not, I can't.
But he has provided a letter, in case you don't want to just take the word for it.
is being in the process.
So if you'd like to address the board, you're welcome to once your agent's done. Okay.
Apologize. So we do have those two letters in support. If the variance is not permitted, there will need to be substantial changes to the pool deck itself, which is now fully complete and was permitted. I have a visual that gives an indication of how difficult it would be to comply with the setbacks, given the pool deck, the required retaining wall for the pool, and then the property boundaries. You can see, I've done this. The area constrained by the required setbacks is noted in red. And the existing retaining wall is noted in blue. A relocation of the accessory structure, as I said, would create an unnecessary hardship to the owners who have, since the cease and desist order on the accessory structure, incurred great expense associated with the repairs to their primary residence following the hurricanes, and have a pool now that was fully permitted and is in compliance. Unfortunately, also, there's been a recent additional expense incurred by the homeowners when they were victimized by a phishing scam that targeted them for over $4,000. Looking at the staff report, at item 7, the requested variance is the minimum to make reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. The staff report itself, at item 7, page 13 of 15 in their report, notes that relocation of the structure is not practical, and further reduction or relocation would compromise the functionality of these improvements and likely require alterations to the existing pool area. We request that the variance on the setbacks be granted, and should the board allow the variance, the Broderick's will obtain after-the-fact permitting to complete the recommended alterations to the structure as indicated in the prior figure 6 from the staff report, which I have shown a couple of times with the knee wall. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions. The one neighbor is present to answer any questions, and of course, Mr. Broderick and Mrs. Broderick are present.
Any questions for the homeowner's agent?
None from mine.
If the homeowner would like to share anything in addition, now would be the time. If not, if there's anybody here in support or in opposition of this case that would like to share their comments with the board, we'd be happy to hear them.
I'd like to say something.
Please come forward.
Head back. I mean, my back is trashed. We're doing construction and stuff. But I live next to these guys.
Can you share your name and address?
John Wilson.
Address?
The fact of the matter.
Can you share your address, Mr. Wilson?
511 Bella Vista Drive.
Thank you.
I've been down here since 2008. I'm from Delaware. Everyone's a lawyer there. And the fact of the matter is, we've had nothing more than complication with Sal Agamiri next to us since I've been down here. He's been nothing more than complications. He's a drug addict, on and on. His wife committed suicide is what happened. because I went over the house.
Let's please keep the
Yeah.
comments relevant to today's case, okay, sir?
I'm just telling you to give you a little factual information. Because he was nothing more than a deadbeat in our neighborhood. And these guys have a spectacular house, and if you guys came over and saw it, you'd want to live there. That kind of stuff. And it really burns me up because I did the same thing in my house. When I came down here, I couldn't live in this house. Because the people down here don't care about stuff, like we do up north. You know what I'm saying by that?
Well,
There you go. I mean, well-educated. The biggest thing, my father used to say is corporate law. He was a corporate lawyer for DuPont.
Okay, sir.
yeah, but
I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate you being here to support your neighbors.
I'm telling you, the background,
Okay, we've got it. Thank you, sir.
the education is
Don't-
nothing.
Thank you, sir.
okay.
And we're biggest.
Please, if you could please have a seat.
Common sense.
Thank you.
Common sense.
Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll close public comment and open for board discussion.
This is heartbreaking because everything from the neighbor dying to the hurricanes to not having it permitted to begin with, but thinking it was permitted. My main concern here is there are people who have done work without permits here who have been told you got to tear that down because you didn't get permits. They didn't get a $330 fine. So it's tough because on one hand, we've seen that as a precedent. On the other hand, it's such a heartbreaking story, and I really.
And we do take every case independently,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
So I agree with you. This is a very challenging case. I think the narrative of, please, sir, if we can't keep order, we'll need to ask you to leave. Okay, thank you. I think the narrative of an individual that was working with a contractor remotely that has now become a permanent homestead resident, and wants to make this his home, and is trying to abide now by the rules, and unfortunately had a terrible hurricane in the process of doing so, makes it more complicated than, just reading the history on paper.
I think our decision, though, is really the variance itself. And if we agree to that, then they can move forward, and that takes care of that whole situation. It's complicated in the
Yep.
background.
Yep.
But it's really a simple task, I think, on our end.
Yep.
Agreed.
My one hesitance is the significance of the variance to the back of the property, but in hearing the testimony today and the hardship that would be required to move the structure, I do believe they have met the criteria for that component of the hardship.
With the pool permit and everything else, I think we're all in order there.
There's support as well.
So the permit issue doesn't bother, that's not to be taken into consideration.
Well, it is. They unknowingly built the structure. Based off their testimony, they thought they had permits to build the structure. They were living in Ohio at the time.
And with COVID, that was, for a while, you couldn't even go into City Hall to get permits.
We've seen that narrative reoccur during that time period. And I think they've since shown the willingness to do all of their hurricane repairs properly, via permit. And understandably, the pool structure is going to become after they get their home in order and able to live there, right? So I think I'm not very comfortable with the fact that there's an open court enforcement on the case, but I also understand that is pending them being able to do that based off what they understand they can do to the property, as a whole.
So what happened to people that were getting permits or trying to get permits during COVID? Were they, I understood they could just apply and there wasn't anybody here to grant the permits.
Yeah.
I can't speak confidently to what that process was, but it's not really, necessarily relevant. It's just the, tight history.
Yeah.
And they were willing to comply with all 5 of the
Their
recommendations.
agent addressed all 5 components without any
So I think
concerns.
we're good there.
Correct.
And they're going to pay a fine of a set amount, I believe it was
$330.
Okay,
It's a
and
minimal
it's not going to increase all.
Administrative fine. Kristen, did you have anything else to share based off your discussion?
We do. Go ahead.
Just if you are considering support of the variance, that the applicant is aware that the building permit has to be obtained within a year. So as part of staff conditions is they do have to obtain a permit after the fact, which depending on the contractor, the architect, and it's already been constructed. I'm not sure what the building department's going to require as part of that, so that should be taken into consideration. But our approval would be that a building permit application permit has to be obtained within a year.
Okay.
As that requirement.
Okay.
It's not stated in the 5. Okay.
It's
hard.
It says that the applicant shall obtain all required building permits consistent with the approved plans, and we can amend that to ensure it's very clear
Within
that
a
that would be
year.
within the year to condition 4.
And the only other one thing, if I may, Madam Chair and board members, is based on the site visit that was out there and the rendering that was proposed, they showed like a little cased opening going into that knee wall section. They do have a exterior door that is there, and I do believe that is proposed to remain. I don't know if that has any relevance, but I just wanted to put that on the record if they'd like to speak to that as well, if necessary.
The exterior door to that, there are 2 doorways into that storage.
Well, there's the one from the front and the side, but that knee wall portion from the covered lanai area, there is a door currently there, and I do believe they wish to retain that. So it's not exact to the rendering that they provided. They did express that, so I just wanted that to be part of the record if that was of any concern.
And that door does not go into the storage facility?
I thought on
Goes into
the
the
newest
open area.
rendition that there was no door in that drawing.
In the rendering, there is not. There currently is, being that that was the bathroom area,
Okay.
or that's currently there. They do, I believe, wish to retain that, but I would like to get that on the record as well, if they do or do not. And I don't know if that has any
Yeah,
say,
so
but
my understanding was there was not currently plumbing or AC. Is that not correct?
I would have the applicant
Okay, could
attest
we
to that,
have
please.
testimony to that? Because, can you please come and state your name and address for the record?
Mark Broderick.
At the
Come
podium.
up here, yeah. Sorry. It's recorded, so we need to be able to hear it.
No, yeah, my name is Mark Broderick. Yeah, there's no plumbing in the structure at all right now. And that breezeway, I would like to keep it a doorway just because I've already got garrison flood planks to protect it. But it's going to be an open lanai, so water could still come in, so.
So what would be the functionality of having that additional doorway there? With understanding in the rendering that you showed us, there was a storage area with 2
Well, my
doors.
carpenter's like, we could just remove the doorway and trim it out, make it look like a breezeway, but the door's there, it's a hurricane door, I've already got flood planks. It would just, the only reason to keep would be one less place for water to come in. But I'm flexible, doesn't have to stay. I mean, I'd rather it does, it's just one less thing I have to take care of, because I still have to cut the wall open. But it's really 6 one way, half a dozen another.
I've placed the rendering here, and if anyone can see that again, it's figure 6. And the idea is that right here.
Right, there is a door
where the
there.
garrison
Yeah, I've already got the
planks
floor
would
planks.
go, and if we had a hurricane that didn't go above them, it would be very helpful.
But it would still be open on the knee wall on the other
Oh,
side?
definitely. Yeah, that's, I was planning on doing that. So we've only got we're still going to have 81 square feet of storage.
Okay, I mean, I think, in my opinion, that's a design function. I just want it to be on the record that there is no plumbing or AC permitted in
Definitely.
this structure.
Madam Chair, if I may, if we look at that proposed rendering, if we can go back to that, to where the right of that door is, there does show a sink. And I believe there is one currently existing as well.
Yeah, that's French drain, though.
So my understanding would be that this would have to be permitted, and so all of that would be
Yeah.
reviewed at site inspection and closure of the permits. Is that correct, Kristen? In terms of them being in compliance with code, and despite this, regardless of what the visual we're seeing here today is, like the end structure needs to be compliant with building.
If the applicant is stating that there is to be no plumbing, but they're showing some on the rendering and there is a sink currently there, I just wanted on the record that is, if that is to remain or if that is to be removed.
And one of the conditions is that all plumbing and air conditioning be removed.
Right, which is fine. But with the exception of that sink, I was told I can drop that into a French drain if I want to keep it. But it's, at the end of the day, I'm willing to take it. I'd like to keep it and just do what my plumber said, put it into a French drain, which is like a bucket of rocks in the ground. He explained to me how it works, so I'm okay either way. If you want it out, it can come out easily. It just,
Is, Kristen, is that compatible within, is that correct based off his?
I don't know from a Florida building code standard if that is acceptable or if that is not.
Also from a flood perspective, from FEMA regs.
why don't I just agree to take the sink out?
Yeah, staff recommends taking it out, right, Kristen?
I'll take it out. I'm just-
Just for simplicity, we want, we just want to make sure everything's done.
Oh,
in
yeah,
a
well, let's
compliant
just
fashion.
remove it. It's easy.
Is there, I'm assuming there's no, the plumbing is, and I'm assuming there, obviously, as a CATV, the electric has already been completed. Is that the code, or do we know, or?
We do not.
That would have to be inspected. We're thinking about just eliminating it because it really is so little electric. If it's just a storage room, we thought about just using battery-operated lights. I mean, we're not going to go in the storage room at night that much. We could probably eliminate electric too, except for the TV. Wouldn't mind having a little, but like I said, it can be fed from the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, the inspection, I mean, I think all of that.
Rather than us making those decisions,
Yeah.
let
If the inspector,
You're right.
Yeah, I think all of that will need to pass
Yeah.
inspection, and just
If
know we're
it doesn't
trying to
pass,
give
I'll
you
fix it.
foresight into.
yeah, how about we do that, yeah.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant?
No.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so going back to our prior discussion and reviewing the conditions, as so far, the only addition we've made is emphasizing that those permits would need to be
1 year.
applied for
Within
within
1
1
year.
year. Is there any
On
other
number 4.
discussion or thoughts for?
Just, I understand the air conditioning and
She just said
the
apply.
plumbing discussion, and it is established that he has the sink there. And I would just say that I would leave it up to permitting to decide whether or not that sink stays or it goes, rather than us making that decision now.
It just has to be compliant with.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Which we don't even need to rule on like that.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah, okay.
So, I have a question, because on the code enforcement side, I think it's not apply for the permits, but it's actually obtain. So we would want it to be consistent with obtaining the permits within the year, so there's no discrepancy between
Okay.
the variance approval and the code requirements.
And it does, condition
say-
4 does say obtain, so we can keep that language and just amend that to say obtain within 1 year.
Yes. Okay.
Are we in agreement to move forward with the motion?
Yes.
Yes. I'll make a proposal that we approve case number 25147 with the 5 conditions that, as stated, but also adding to condition number 4 that the applicant shall obtain a required building permit, and that's to be within 1 year.
Member Small, can you provide the backup as to why you're making that motion in terms of the justification for the criteria met based off the testimony heard today?
Based off the testimony we heard today and the hardships, that's what I'm basing it on.
I second that.
Roll call.
Vice Chair Core,
Yeah.
Member Kunzer,
Yes.
Member Small,
Yes.
Member Schmidt,
Yes.
Chair Chase.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Moving on to the 4th case for this afternoon, case number 26086, 8351 Blind Pass Road. Brandon?
Thank you.
So this is an unnecessary and undue hardship variance for the property of 8351 Blind Pass Road. It is case number 26086. Trey Ware of Ware and Sliker Construction for Jonathan Rinikin and Brittany Pierpont of 8351 Blind Pass LLC. Request to repave and expand an existing concrete and turf block parking lot with asphalt. This will result in a parking lot with a greater number of parking spaces than required by the Land Development Code. That is allowed by right. However, those excess parking spaces are required to be constructed with turf block or grass parking surface. They're proposing the parking lot to be fully asphalt, which the asphalt parking spaces is what triggers this variance request. That is made pursuant to Land Development Code Section 23.5B. Here is an aerial of the property. It's located at the southeast corner of Blind Pass Road and 84th Avenue. Property has a zoning of ROR, that is residential office retail. This is a low to moderate intensity mixed use zoning district. You can see here a markup of the survey of the property. The existing property use is office. It has a primary dental office as well as some lower intensity office uses within it as well. I believe there are 3 smaller spaces within the building used for lower intensity offices. So as mentioned before, this is a proposed layout plan by the applicant. You can see, and I'll have another slide showing the existing layout of the lot. They are proposing to asphalt over what is currently a concrete and turf block parking lot. They're proposing 13 spaces based on this concept plan. They do have a few different arrangements, but they are all laid out based on an excess number of parking spaces on the property. The development requires 9 parking spaces. Any excess parking spaces per the Land Development Code above that 9 spaces, which is a demand for this particular office building, must be turf block or grass. The applicant is requesting to be able to asphalt all 13 of the spaces that are proposed, so they are effectively asking for a variance for 4 excess spaces to be set in asphalt rather than turf block or grass. You can see here a cleaner copy of the survey just showing where the existing turf block in red is proposed to be converted to asphalt paving. The concrete in the center, as well as near the building on the east side, is also proposed to be made asphalt. There is an existing green space that is proposed to be made asphalt paving that's in between the eastern part of the lot and the western portion. You can see on the prior slide, a portion of that is proposed to still remain green space between those 2 parking areas, but a portion will be paved over and made asphalt as well. So here's some photographs of the site. This is showing largely the western lot along Blind Pass Road, showing the existing conditions of the concrete drive lane in the center, as well as the turf parking on the top right is looking toward the northwest. And then you can see the eastern portion of the western part of the lot, and the bottom left, that is showing the turf block parking area that exists today. Looking at the top right photo is the eastern side of the building. That is a detention area. There is also one present on the west side of the building, so the property does provide for stormwater within its boundaries. Neither of these areas is proposed to be modified under the subject scope, so they will retain their existing detention areas on the property. And then you can see on the bottom left image that is looking to the south from the apron on the east side, so the right or the eastern of the 2 parking areas, that's showing the eastern parking area that will be converted to asphalt if this request is approved. This is an unnecessary and undue hardship variance. There are 8 standards for review. Staff finds that the applicant has met criteria 2 through 6 as well as 8. Based on their narrative, we are asking for a little bit of additional testimony for items 1 and 7, criteria 1 and 7. The Board of Adjustment must make positive findings on all 8 variance criteria to justify granting a variance. We've asked, as I said before, for additional testimony from the applicant regarding criteria 1 and 7 to support their case. There must be a demonstrated hardship of land structure or building that doesn't specifically stem from the use of the building or that solely stems from property aesthetics. Physical challenges like grading that is unviable to rectify can be considered. So if there is some substantial issue with grading on the lot that could not be rectified under a repaving project, that is a hardship of the land. That is something that this board could consider in the issuance of a variance. However, Being the first property in the zoning to comply with the standard is not alone sufficient to justify a hardship of the land structure or building. This is one of the very few properties in this zoning district and really citywide that is an office use that contains excess parking. It is also the only office use that I'm aware of that has a fully compliant parking lot or even an excessively compliant parking lot that is turf block instead of the asphalt or concrete layout. However, being compliant and then requesting to comply with the standard applicable to other properties is not alone sufficient. There must be some hardship of the land structure or building that accompanies that request. The hardship has been advanced on the basis of the customer-facing business. It should be explained why the other 3 office spaces that I addressed earlier in the presentation are not sufficient for those spaces to utilize the turf block spaces. We understand that the customers of the dentistry business do have some challenges with the use of the turf block spaces, but with the lot requiring 13 or proposed for 13 spaces, requiring 9 based on the use of the business, we would like to see if there's an additional intensity or additional use of the dental office for this parking lot that would potentially provide an additional basis for the entire parking lot to be asphalt paving. We do, however, find that issuance of this variance is not likely to cause significant adverse impacts to the public. There are existing drainage facilities on the property. One of our major concerns with converting the entire parking area to asphalt is that it would result in a adverse impact to the neighboring property or to any kind of drainage facilities on the property. However, one of the conditions that would be recommended if this case were to be approved is that the applicant demonstrate at the time of permitting that they are not causing any adverse impact to abutting property, specifically to the eastern property, which is in residential use. The asphalt paving will extend to within a few feet of that property line. The applicant will likely show that the drainage from this parking area drains to either the street or the detention facility, which is to the south of the eastern parking area. We do find that the applicant has met criteria 1 through 6 as well as 2 through 6 as well as 8. The board may also find that the applicant has not supported additional criteria that staff finds them to have supported, but we do feel that they have provided adequate testimony to support 6 of the 8 criteria. We did take this item to technical review committee at the beginning of the month. We primarily discussed with the applicant the stormwater requirements, what they acknowledged, and amending the narrative based on the issues that were discussed at the meeting. They have supplied a supplemental application that was included with your packet. We do request, as I mentioned before, some additional applicant testimony, whether there's some condition of the land that creates the hardship advanced by the applicant through the narrative, such as grading changes in the parking area that are challenging to remediate, whether the dentistry use operates at different times or on different days than the other office uses in the building and requires more than its proportional code compliant parking demand of the lot spaces. That could provide a little bit additional use demand for the additional 4 spaces to be converted to an asphalt parking. And if the 4 excess parking spaces can be constructed as compact spaces of 8 feet by no less than 16 feet along the interior aisle of the parking lot, and additional landscaping could be provided at the frontage that would help to compensate for some of the landscaping that is being removed to accommodate this expanded request. That would also bring the site into greater compliance with the landscaping division and can compensate for some of the impervious surface increases. That is not an additional variance. That is something that's allowed by the city's land development code to allow for compact spaces when they are excess to the number of spaces required on the lot. So this would effectively shrink the width of the spaces, likely on the interior aisle of the western parking lot, by approximately 4 feet. This would allow for the applicant to provide some additional frontage landscaping and bring the site a bit more into compliance with that standard. So we do ask that the applicant or agents address the prior request to provide additional support for their development request. Should the Board of Adjustment find a basis for approval for the subject variance, staff recommends the following conditions: that the applicant submit and have approved a final as-built survey prior to closeout of the companion permit, that the applicant shall demonstrate prior to permit issuance that the asphalt will not create any adverse stormwater impacts on the eastern residential property, And condition 3 is that 4 of the parking spaces located within the center parking aisle shall be installed at 8 feet in width. They can also make the length reductions if they request. It would not be necessary based on this condition. The remaining 4 feet that they pick up shall be added to the buffer along the frontage within the property boundaries, and landscaping shall be installed to bring the space into greater compliance with Land Development Code Section 22.7, which addresses frontage buffer requirements for commercial properties. So based on that, a little bit of an amended request with the action options made under the prior cases. This would be a motion to approve variance case 26086, finding that the applicant has supported the 8 criteria necessary to demonstrate an unnecessary undue hardship. Because these hardship requests require that all 8 of the criteria be supported, we would ask that the board just state definitively that they have provided adequate support for criteria 1 and 7. And if you either agree with staff assessment, you can accept the recommendation as made, or you would provide support for the additional criteria you would like the applicant to additionally support. You can find that the case has not been adequately supported and motion to deny, finding that the applicant has not met specified criteria, or a motion to continue the case to a future meeting if you need additional information from either the applicant or from staff. We do have the agent for the case present. We also have one of the owners present as well. Happy to take any questions.
I have a question on turf block.
Yes.
The requirement is for drainage or aesthetics or both?
I believe it's primarily for drainage. I will point out that the applicant has met the lot coverage limitation even with the conversion to asphalt. They are not requesting to lower or rather raise the impervious surface limitations. I believe the requirement is based on partially on aesthetics, partially on drainage, and partially on potentially a heat island effect, or just reducing the amount of paved surface within a property.
Did the applicant consider repairing the turf block rather than asphalting it?
I believe their intent is to make it asphalt, and one of the reasons they provided for that was for stability of the parking lot. Another was aesthetics and making it a consistent surface, but they may have additional reasons they can speak to.
Aesthetically, the turf block is more attractive than asphalt, to me.
And they can speak to this when they present. I believe their intent is to asphalt at least the 9 spaces that they are allowed to based on the code. And what was presented in the narrative is that leaving the other 4 spaces as grass or turf block would make it less appealing, but they can speak to that.
Did we have any comments or receive any
Yes,
from the neighboring residential?
We did receive one letter of support from a neighbor on the 84th Avenue side, a residential neighbor. Yes.
And Brandon, you had expressed concern to the future as far as them buying property surrounding them. Was that?
The concern is the property to the immediate east is in use as a residential property, and our concern is just making sure that any asphalt, any impervious surface placed on the east side, which is currently largely turf block, be controlled to either swale to the street or run into the detention facility directly to the south of it to make sure that it doesn't adversely affect that neighbor to the east. I don't believe they have any plans to expand at this time.
Very good.
Anything else for Brandon?
Yeah, Brandon, I don't know if it's a question for you, but is the staff concerned with any type of liability because of the turf, because of the unevenness of that? I'm just curious if is that something you've addressed or thought of? Or have an opinion on as staff?
Well, certainly for the access.
I'm sorry, but the pictures themselves look like it's pretty rough. And as a doctor, you know, I was always worried about liability.
That is partially what they've advanced as part of the basis for their request, specifically for their patients. It was stated in the narrative that they serve an older population. They were concerned about the stability of their spaces. What I would like them to speak to in that regard is they do have 3 office spaces within the office building that are not in use by the dentistry office. Effectively, I would just like them to state whether they have need for those additional 3 spaces that could potentially be kept turf block and have those spaces service those individual units. They may have different operating hours from those spaces. They may have increased demand, but that wasn't directly addressed through the narrative. I do understand the concerns with the stability, though, and I would like them to just provide a little bit more testimony to that because they did advance that in their narrative.
I just didn't know if you had an opinion on that. as far as what it looked like, because I wasn't able to go check it out, so.
Anything else for Brandon? Thank you.
Thank you.
The applicant would please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Madam Chair, any disclosures or?
Any ex parte?
No, just a site visit.
None for me.
Drive by.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for having us today. My name is Trey Ware with Ware and Slacker Construction. I am the GC and the agent for the owners at 8351 Blind Pass Road. Let's see. Oh,
Just one moment.
The PowerPoint, please.
there we go. Okay, so yeah, I'm the general contractor and agent for the owners at 8351 Blind Pass Road. That's Brittany Pierpont, who I have with me today, and her husband, Jonathan Riekkonen. So today we are here requesting a variance from section 23.B specifically, only that one, of the Land Development Code to allow for parking spaces in excess of the minimum required by the code to be constructed as conventional paved asphalt parking rather than turf block or other semi-pervious materials. And throughout our presentation today, I hope you see that our request does not seek additional density, it doesn't seek additional impervious area, or any increase in developmental rights for that matter. Our request simply seeks flexibility in the surface material used for the parking within the impervious area already permitted to us through the zoning regulations. So I'll start out first by introducing the property, the hardship, and the variance, and then I'll have Brittany come up here and speak to some of the business-specific needs for the parking lot. So this right here, as you can see, is the latest survey taken back in April of the property in question. So it's 8351 Blind Pass Road. It sits at the corner of Blind Pass Road and 84th Avenue North in the ROR zoning district. It's on an 11,500 square foot lot, which is at the high end of the ROR zoning district from what's available out there. And that's an important factor when I introduce the variance request here shortly, to keep in mind the size of the lot. The existing building on the property is 2,900 square feet, conditioned space, and it has an improved use of office. And that's where Brittany operates her Pure Dental Clinic, right there on that property. So the variance request today is going to be focused primarily on the parking that you see just page north of the building in the survey. So this is a photo of the existing parking lot, and as we've discussed, it's currently composed of a mix of parking surface materials, paved concrete, and also turf block pavers. And like we've mentioned previously, you know, it's in pretty rough shape. Really, the parking lot needs to come out, and we need to redo it. The concrete paving, you know, there's some significant cracks there that pose trip hazards. And then the turf block, you see that photo on the left. Yeah, that doesn't lend itself well to, you know, women in heels and my client's elderly patient base as well, which Brittany will speak to. So the focus of this variance request is to only pave and asphalt the existing parking surface we have now. Yes, it's made of two different materials currently, but we're not asking for anything else. Literally just go back and pave with asphalt our parking surface. And so if you guys approve this variance request, our site plan would look something like this. This wouldn't be the exact site plan we submit. Like Brandon said, we need to massage it a little bit to make sure it complies with other parts of the code, but it'd be substantially similar. And as you can see, we can comfortably fit 13 or 14 parking spaces in the layout of our existing parking that we have today. And then it's also a very important aspect of this variance to understand that the improvements we're proposing today remain fully compliant with all impervious surface limitations already extended to us through the ROR zoning. So this right here is a calculation of the ISRs. On the left, we have the existing, and you can see it's only 40.8% ISR when allowed by code is 85%. And we're maxed out at that 40%. That's a big difference. That's essentially saying that over half of our allowable impervious surface area by the zoning regulation is basically unusable for our property specifically. if you guys were to approve the variance request to pave the entire area of existing parking in asphalt, it'd only bring us up to 70%, still substantially less than the zoning regulation limitation. So again, specifically, this is only a request for a variance from 23.5B. That reads, parking spaces that are in excess of the number of spaces required by this division shall be constructed as grass parking, turf block, or in a parking structure. Well, a parking structure is not a reasonable use of land on a lot this size. And grass parking or turf block is a lesser quality material that constitutes a variance that my client should not, or a hardship that my client should not have to face, especially when they're already meeting the ISR limitations of the zoning regulation, which, as you guys know, is the primary factor that dictates how much site development you can pursue. So we're not asking for additional ISR. We're not asking for additional building area or density or intensity of use. We're only asking to be able to pave what physically fits on our site, which I showed you on the previous site plan. We're not asking for anything more. It's just some flexibility in the materials. So how does this apply to our land? So in our case, the property could legally contain substantially more impervious surface area under the ROR district regulations, but section 23.B, specifically that section, effectively prevents that area from being reasonably used for any paved parking. And that's specific to our property because of the combination of 3 specific code provisions in combination with our land size. So the first one being the low intensity minimum parking requirement for the office use, which is 1 parking space per 300 square feet of conditioned building area, combined with the ROR zoning district's generous ISR requirement of 85%, and then section 23.B that prohibits conventional paved parking more than the minimum required by code. So those 3 factors of the code combined creates a condition that in which portions of our already permitted impervious surface area cannot be used for any practical site development. And that hardship is significantly amplified for properties in the ROR zoning with a comparatively larger lot size. It's so significant on our property that 44% of our site can't be used because of section 23.5 specifically. And because of the size of our property. So if you look at our lot size compared to other lots in the ROR zoning, there's only 20 properties zoned ROR within the city limits. And of those 20 properties, the average lot size is 9,400 square feet. Ours is 11,500, so significantly greater than average. And of those 20 properties, there are only 3 properties that are larger than ours in the ROR zoning. So we're at the high end of this. It's affecting us a lot more in ROR zoning than all the other properties in the zoning district. And if you look at it by use, like what Brandon was getting to previously, of the 20 properties zoned ROR within city limits, only 2 other properties have an approved office use like us. And it's worth noting that those 2 other properties, they don't currently conform with this code, 23.5. One of the office use properties has 13 more paved parking spaces than what's allowed by 23.5. And the other one has 2 more paved parking spaces than what's allowed. And I don't say that to, point fingers or get anyone in trouble. I'm just, trying to show that there is a need for additional parking more than the minimum required by code that we should be able to address, and for lots specifically with our specific conditions. So I'm hoping you understand that, our request is for simple flexibility in the surface material used for the parking within the already permitted impervious area allowance that we have through the zoning. And it's our opinion that approving this variance would result in the following aspects that are aligned with the intent and purpose of the Land Development Code, probably more so than rejecting it. If you approve the variance, we would say that a fully paved asphalt parking lot would be more visually appealing than a parking lot with split mixed construction materials. You'd be approving a parking lot that would be safe and free of trip hazards, whereas if we have to construct a parking lot of mixed construction materials, there will always be trip hazards. You would be allowing us to better enhance the stormwater control with the use of curbs on an asphalt paved parking lot. That will take away Brandon's concern for our impacts on the neighbors. We can grade everything towards the street or towards the drainage area, and the use of curbs will significantly reduce that concern. And then the retention of property value. You know, a fully paved asphalt parking lot will retain its value more so than a parking lot of mixed materials. So with that, I'll go ahead and have Brittany come up here and talk to some business-specific needs for the parking lot.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Brittany Pierpont. I am the owner and the doctor of Pure Dental.
We could also get your address for the record.
Oh, yes, sorry. 8351 Blind Pass Road, St. Pete Beach. So I actually, ironically, just last week had, because my clientele tends to be, we're very, as you guys know, snowbird driven in this area, and that doesn't go, unnoticed in my practice. So we're very busy in the winter, not as busy in the summer. But on that note, a lot of my patients are older, and I have had numerous complaints on how hard it is to push, wheelchairs, and a lot of times those people pushing them are older as well. That and also walkers, specifically with the cross ones, that it gets stuck in there. And just last week, I actually had somebody fall to the point where we almost had to call for help, but we were able to get him up, and that was in that exact location. So that was kind of my main reason for doing it, because I want safety and I don't want anybody to get injured. And we have a lot of people in wheelchairs and walkers. On the other note, I do have 3 offices that I do rent out on the other side. I do have them when they sign their lease, I have them so that they can only have 1 spot per, office. So they know that ahead of time, but it's still 3 spots there. And then I have 5 staff and myself, so that's 6. And then in my busy times, and then of course we can't park on the street or anywhere else because we'd be violating other things. So we definitely could use the extra parking in that regard. So those were kind of the main, concerns and reasons. And a lot of it is from safety perspective, that and doing my ramp to make sure that my patients can push their wheelchairs and walk, safely. Because I think my average population is probably in their 70s for the patients that I see. So that's the reason for it.
Do you have any concerns with the staff recommendation of making the 4 additional spots compact in order to be able to provide some additional landscaping to beautify the kind of frontage?
I don't think
property?
so. I think that should be fine.
Yeah. Any additional questions for the applicant?
Are the other 2 spaces leased out yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are. And they do tend to work. I don't like to put specific hours that they can be in, so they can kind of come and go when they please. But they know that there can only be 1 spot, at least during my working hours, which are Monday through Thursday, like 9 to 4 type thing. So, any other questions?
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If there's anybody else that would like to speak on behalf or in opposition of this case, now would be the time. Hearing none, we'll close public comment and open for board discussion.
I think if Brandon was worried about 1.5, I think they've justified 1 for sure with the liability issue, no doubt.
Yep, and just the extensive discussion around the size of the property in connection to the district. And then I also believe criteria 7 was just addressed in discussing the other office spaces, the number of staff, and then the necessity for the.
And I think curbs are a big thing as far as controlling the water flow, so.
Yeah, I was going to say that if we approved it, that they could have the asphalt, but the swell wall to protect their neighbors from runoff. And I don't know where that runoff would go exactly, because I don't know where the drainage is in that area, but at least it wouldn't go to the neighbors.
And would you feel that would be covered by the current condition of insuring runoff is addressed? Or would you feel more comfortable specifically
I would
required?
specifically require a swell wall, rather than making it general, so that the runoff is directed specifically, just to protect the neighbors. Because we are losing permeability by taking the turf blocks out.
Yep.
I agree. I mean, especially with that amount of, during a rain, that amount of asphalt.
Yeah, there's a lot of water is going to be moved, yeah.
Would the applicant like to address whether that condition would be?
Can I clarify, are you talking about curbs, or are you talking about something different?
When you say curb, I'm thinking swell wall, just to prevent water flow into the neighbor. That's,
A retaining wall, or just parking lot curbs?
well, a swell wall can just be a low
6-inch
height
curb.
wall, just to direct the water to the street and not to the neighbors.
So just standard parking lot curbs?
Yes.
I guess, I mean,
That
think
would
we
work,
define it
that would work
differently,
for what you're asking, that would definitely work.
yes, I think that would be adequate.
Okay.
Good.
And that's, you've already addressed
Yes,
that, so. okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Just want to make sure we're speaking the same
Thank
language.
you.
Yep. All right, so it seems like we've all agreed that criteria 1 and 7 have been addressed based off the testimony heard today. Any other points?
No, I completely changed my mind from what I was thinking to when I heard the excellent explanation. And the thing about having older people who have mobility issues, I'm one of those people, that definitely can be a real problem. I mean, I'm not in a wheelchair or anything, but...
Even walkers and wheelchairs, I mean, I understand that,
Are we at the point for a motion?
I move that we approve case 26086 with staff recommendations.
I second. Do we need to be clear, I'm sorry, do we need to be clear, Nancy, on the one in, that we're satisfied with the,
Yes, there was
criteria for 1 and-
discussion specifically to 1 and 7. I think it's covered in the record.
okay,
Thank you.
so second.
Roll call, please.
Member Small,
Yes.
Member Schmidt,
Yes.
Vice Chair Core,
Yes.
Member Kunzer,
Yes.
Chair Chase.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our final case for this afternoon, case number 26094, 8350 Boca Ciega Drive. Thank you for your patience.
You take a small bathroom.
Yes, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Perfect. Thank you. I can demonstrate my life.
Case number 26094, 8350 Boca Ciega Drive.
Thank you. So this is a request for 8350 Boca Ciega Drive. It's a practical difficulty variance. Megan and Joseph Grant request to construct an unroofed elevated deck that encroaches to 11.08 feet from the front property line, where 20 feet is required for decks elevated more than 2 feet above grade. The request is made pursuant to Land Development Code Section 6.13 C2B. Here is an aerial of the property. It's located at the southwest side of 84th Avenue and Boca Ciega Drive. Property has zoning of RU2, which is a residential single-family zoning district. That is currently its use. The Land Development Code requires a 20-foot front yard setback for open decks located within the front of a structure, pursuant to Land Development Code Section 6.13 C2B. The existing front setback of the residence is 20 feet on this side. The applicant's requesting to construct a new open deck that will be elevated to the first living level of the home and encroach to 11.08 feet from the front property line. You can see the standards in the table at the bottom of the screen. 20-foot required setback. The existing dwelling is just at that setback. They are proposing an elevated deck at just over 11 feet from the front property line. And you can see that here on the sketch that was provided with the request. That is the 84th Avenue side on the right side of the screen where the encroachment will be made toward. Here's some photographs of the site showing the sign posting at both frontages. This is looking at the front yard where the deck is proposed. It will extend over the backyard, the PVC fence area on the right side of the screen. You can see another from standing at the intersection, the southwest corner of the intersection, looking toward the home. This is looking toward the backyard from the frontage of the property. I did speak with the applicant. They are proposing to move the fence forward slightly, but it will be reduced in height to meet the front yard setback standards of 4 feet. It is an existing, I believe, 6-foot fence there. Another from the tree in the front looking toward the south from the frontage of the property. There are the 4 criteria for the practical difficulty variance. Staff asks for testimony as to why the deck cannot be reasonably accommodated on the east side of the structure where it could be constructed the same depth without need for a variance. This is on the Boca Ciega side of the structure looking toward the west. I would assume that it would have to do with the internal circulation of the residence as well as the shade provided on the north side, but we would like the applicant to speak to why they decided to construct it on the 84th Avenue side instead of the Boca Ciega Drive side. Being in the RU2 zoning district, there is only a 10-foot setback from the longer of the 2 frontages, which is the Boca Ciega Drive side, and it appears that a deck of approximately 9 feet in depth could be accommodated on this side without need for a variance. Staff requests testimony from the applicant as just stated before. If the board finds that the applicant has adequately addressed all 4 criteria necessary to issue a practical difficulty variance, we do recommend 3 conditions intended to protect the public welfare. The western portion of the deck within the required side yard setback does not require a variance. It is only the frontage extension that requires a variance, and the reason for that is because the applicant has provided the access on the west side of the deck facing the neighbor's property to the direct west. There is about just over 4-foot setback on the west side there. That is allowed because it is currently used as access. We do ask that access be maintained into the future, that it not become an extension of the usable part of the deck and only be used for the stair access as well as the landing at the top. The deck shall not be roofed or enclosed, and a final as-built survey shall be submitted and approved prior to closeout of the associated building permit. We did receive 2 letters of support for this request. One was provided by a neighbor 2 properties to the west. In the applicant's narrative that they provided with the application, they did state that they had spoken to the neighbor to the direct west. They did not provide a letter. We just asked that the applicant put on the record that they did speak to that neighbor and receive their approval for this request. With that being said, the 3 action options are on your screen based on the testimony provided by the applicant. Happy to answer any questions. We do have the owners present.
Thank you, Brandon. Any questions for Brandon?
No.
Thank you.
The applicant would please come forward and share your case with the board.
Hello, everyone. My name is Meg Grant, and I guess I'll start with addressing...
Share your address, Mike.
Oh, sure. 8350 Boca Ciega Drive. I'll start by addressing the question that was proposed on why we couldn't do it on the east side of our property. So we live on a corner lot, and if you guys... So the front yard that he's referencing is actually our side yard on 84th. If we were to put the deck on the east side of our property, that faces Boca Ciega Drive, which is a pretty busy street. School line is always there every day for Gulf Beach's Magnet School. We have young children and more on the way, and want them to be able to have a place where we can kind of open up our living space and get down into the backyard. And so that's, Brandon used a better term, but like internal circulation of the home, it just makes more sense for us to be doing it on the west side of our property. What else?
We
Do you have anything else to say?
We do have another letter from
Oh,
our
yes,
neighbor
yeah.
directly on the west side that is signed and should have been dated. We could present that as well. And then, just as a reason we didn't build it off the back when consulting with that neighbor, they do have a pool area, so we felt that a deck just directly outside the backyard would maybe be impeding to their kind of pool space area. So a lot of this was kind of deliberated with some of our neighbors to just find, you know, where the best space for us would be to move forward.
Yeah, Wade is our neighbor directly to, he's right here, directly to our west. And then I think what Joey was just doing a good job of explaining is like, here's his pool area right here. And so we could have code compliantly gone this way with the deck. And I think instead, you know, the farther we go this way, the more we're kind of like looking over our fence into his pool area. So although he does not, like, he didn't really care, I feel like it was our decision to kind of just make this feel more well-rounded in the house. And
Show me
less-
where, you showed the side you could do it on, now show me the other side where you want to do it.
Where we want to do it is right here.
That
this
white
L
spot
shape.
right there.
Yeah.
So this is perfectly compliant. It's just this portion right here that we would be seeking a variance for. And again, like, that's added extra square footage that we'd like for the deck that we could put here, but I felt like, we both felt like that was.
And is Boca Ciega Drive the one at the bottom?
100 would be Bocas.
With-
Boca Ciega Drive is right here.
Yeah.
So the question that was proposed initially was why don't we go off the east side of the home, which would be kind of like the front of our home, and it just doesn't.
Till we get the picture back, because, yeah.
There you go.
There we go.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you guys could.
And then
see it.
that's, is that 84th that's at the top right?
Yeah. Yep, this is 84th right here, and this is Boca Ciega Drive right here. So the west side of our home is this side right here.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here today that would like?
If I may, yes, I do.
Sure.
What, the decking material,
Composite?
composite?
Yep.
That's okay. And Brandon, was there any concerns about spacing on the composite?
No, not
No.
for this.
Okay. Good enough, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here today that would like to speak in support or opposition of today's case? Hearing none, we'll close public comment and open for board discussion. I think this is a very classic case where you have a corner lot that technically has 2 front yards, and
Yeah,
so you have
that's-
site setbacks that you're being forced to comply with that may not necessarily really be relevant to the way the house is constructed. I think the one component that staff asked for additional testimony on, they were very clear, and I also think it's nice to see them go out of their way to accommodate, you know, what will be best suited for the neighborhood. It's my 2 cents.
And I think in the material it says it's fairly common along that neighborhood to build to that side, so I'm good.
Neighbors are in support.
Yes. Yep.
Was there
The
any
neighborhood is different here, so that's,
ex parte or conflicts?
Oh, no.
No ex parte on this one, no.
Okay,
Nope.
okay.
Are we good?
Yeah.
So I'd like to move that we approve case number 26094, with the specified conditions laid out by by Brandon.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Core,
Yes.
Member Kunzer,
Yes.
Member Small,
Yes.
Member Schmidt,
Yes.
Chair Chase.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
You had to wait a long time for that.
Just let us know when the pool party is, okay?
All right, so our next meeting will be on July 29th, which is a Monday?
No, it is actually Wednesday.
Oh, it is a Wednesday.
Back to Wednesday, yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's a
Wednesday?
Okay.
July 29th, Wednesday?
It's usually the last
Uh,
Wednesday of
how does
every
that-
month.
Looking.
We do have at least 2 applications right now, but there are some that are trying to get some last.
In the hopper?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion, Nancy?
No, unfortunately, I will not be here on the 29th, so Ralph will probably cover the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, meeting adjourned.
See you in a couple months then, because